What's the difference between dirt and a computer?
A power-up, but you can't use it to misconstrue what power shouldn't be thrown up. Power is really great, especially if you have the energy to match it with. And since energy can never be destroyed, it's always in a state of being transferred. And in computers, that's what half of the battle is transferring the right data. It's no wonder that they thrive on security systems. How much of a security system are you outside of a computer? That would be what an administrator's opportune would aim at, pinpointing the exact things. For doing this, we're going to have to delve into the most complex muscle you've got, your brain, and all of its transmissions and links are somewhat intricate as the rods and cones in your eyes. Is there a connection from one and the other? I spoke to a person who had dementia yesterday, and they were describing it as this horrific event where they would ask their mate, why is the people still crying? And it was as if she had really been in that moment where it was described as seeing people crying, a moment from the past that was so true. I thought of it as a superpower. Now, this could get a lot of people angry, and surely it's towing the line on what a norm is normalcy, the normality of controversy. Let's get into this. You know how Luke Skywalker projected his body into the end scene in that one movie where they're trying to blast him to smithereens, but they couldn't because that was just his figure? Or in the figure not of speech, but in the figure of the mind. A dementia person probably is traveling to that location. It's just they're in their body. Is that wrong? Certainly should be if they get stuck in it, but if they're popping in and out of it, it's like you have epilepsy. Do you know people who are famous who had epilepsy were? Lewis Carroll. He wrote Alice in Wonderland having seizures. What kind of mind scrabble could that build up with? A mind scrabble, I think, is should be denoted as how rich going against the grain can be. When you're grinding up flour, you want maximum friction. And so what maximum friction would cause through falling through a grinder is having the cake bake well. This is what random number generators are in computer science terms. And the more that you have a greater one, the more organic your greater can be. Obviously, the administrator's opportune, but what in life is the goal for it? The goal is the most organic constitute possible and not to be substituted in the mix of earning that. Using a cloud keychain is something where you can't undermine how great it is just to have it be done multiple times without losing everything that is associated with the keychain or the cloud. It's like a ball and chain, but it doesn't lock you out if you keep getting the wrong answer. Something what a security system should have in mind if it's an administrator's opportune. When you combine the Mandela effect and a Mandela effect, it's as though you can resonate a key feature of conscious and then visual material sense. These two things have boggled minds, but when they pop into focus from out of frame, it's as clear as night and day. I'll have these fatalities, and it's where, like, if you're a wind god, you can blow wind at your opponent and their skin falls off and they die. That's equal to like a giant organ playing, and then a giant organ with all these tubes blowing all its wind out on Earth. So the more that you flesh it out with actual instrumentation, I think it's a great combatant of how soil and computations of computers are actually accurate, is the more that you can be colorful with instruments. And tuning forks are a relation of percussion and wind. What if a character just did all these fatalities and then they won everything in the Mortal Kombat tournaments and saved Earthrealm? I think that that would be an excavation of how any of them could have just done that, but figuring out like their combos and all that stuff where it isn't just a cheat code every time is the main purpose of life. And then why none of the characters in Mortal Kombat always have a victory is because they can't just do their fatality every single time. That wastes the purpose of the point. What's the key of all the sourcing? The source, what's your sources? Check the sources. A fact checker would suggest that you need to check the sources. But what if the administrator's opinion could not be sourced? Well, then, you know how the Pandora's box got opened and all these bad things came out? The same concept in Eden, where the Adam or Eve was eating that apple. And so when we're born into such a place that's not ideal, it's almost as if you're born to be part of the problem, but then it's where God works in mysterious ways. And so that could be twice as great if you're eliminating the problem from what most people wouldn't think is ideal. And so when you have an administrator's opinion, it can't be ideal for everyone because we're all not the same. And the more that you try to be the same, it's not, because you're ending what is unique. And so with that in mind, you've got to have the basics of a gyroscope. When you're breaking it down, it comes to like a web, some rocks, and a rod. With these three tools, you can formulate a gyroscope and then pick what's being put in it. And so that it's almost as if an egg and a crystal are two in one, whereas they're utilized to formulate a prize. Whether it is the prize or the prize isn't it, it's exchangeable. It's almost as if you're combining cards and a chess board game on top of each other. In the movie Alice in Wonderland, they actually did that, but then they had a war on top of the board with the cards being what are battling them. So that's combining like third dimension, and then the outcome of the winner of the board game against the cards is like a fourth dimension, being the same as a zero dimension. Whereas if you lose the game, you're gonna be you're gonna be X'd out in a zero dimension. That zero dimension X'd out has an opportunity to be a fourth dimension if you're the victor against the odds on the board game playing against these cards. Hawk. I like bald eagles, I like hawks, partly because I'm in the town where I graduated high school from, and we're the Black Hawks. I'm an alumni of a Black Hawk. I've got a degree in Superior, and they were the Yellow Jackets. And it's no surprise that even before I did that, I like the bees, and I think the bees like me. And then the relation between bees and dirt is that both of them allow for organic compounds. How many different ways is there to skin a cat?
not to be confused of how to take one out. How do you stop a snake is you cut the head off the snake. But how would you know if the snake isn't a hydra? Was when you've cut the head off a hydra, it grows another just as quick. You have to take out the heart of a hydra. So making sure a snake isn't a hydra dragon. And then like a superpower of a dragon would be like eating its tail and you not knowing, because when it eats its tail, it's like inside of a meta formation. Meta. Boy, is that term being undermined.